Hello everybody and welcome to the Chapter 1 Part 6 of the story analysis. Today we're talking about wolves among sheep. Really excited about this, guys. It's going to be a lot of fun. Let's go ahead and hear what Apollyon has to say.
The fortress of Sverngard, my goal. For too long, the true warriors among the Vikings had been held back by the chains of social bonds, of kin, of law. Now we would knock down their gate and return their world to its rightful order.
You know, Apollyon seems to be under this impression that Vikings were these, by nature, savages or savage warriors. And keep in mind, guys, that Nordic peoples, where the Vikings came from, did have laws and rules and a social life. They did have social order. They had a society. But when they fought and raided against others, they turned that off to be more savage and brutal, because that's what you needed to be a proper raider. You needed to be unfeeling, you needed to scare the bejesus out of your enemy and take what you could. So don't think that they were just these savage monsters who were just bloodthirsty. That's a common misconception. One thing that I'm going to be doing as we go through this game mode too is a lot of y'all asked questions after the last video, and I'm happy to answer them. Y'all asked some really good questions. I'm really excited to answer some of them.
I had questions. Master, why this fortress? Looks like it's just a storehouse.
It is, and that's why we're here.
They've got a big sale on today. I want to be part of it.
These barbarians, they seem like they're good people. They embrace each other like they were all kin.
Maybe they are.
But that is all a lie. When night falls, they stab each other with their knives.
And swords and daggers and...
If there are wolves among them, should we not set them free?
I don't know. It seems like a bad idea to be releasing wolves, man.
Now I had new questions. Ones that were much harder to answer.
Oh, wow, the size of that ram.
Catapults! Keep the ram moving!
Being a skeptic was a death sentence.
Okay, so a ram probably would not actually be this size. That seems a little unbelievable. But would it have a roof like that? Yeah, there were some rams that had roofs on them. Easy way to keep drop projectiles off and to make sure that flaming arrows didn't light it on fire. That's why sometimes the roof would be wet to keep that from happening. So totally a possibility. Not at all outside the realm of possibility. Okay, so while we're making our way through this, I'm going to answer a few of the questions. The first question that I want to answer is someone asked about the mace, the knight mace. Would a mace be used? And I think that they meant to say flail, because a mace is a long pole with a heavy ball with spikes at the end that you would use as a bludgeoning weapon. And yes, you would use that. That is a good weapon. But I think you mean the flail, which is what the conqueror uses. And people have apparently told you, oh, it's such a bad weapon. It's a terrible weapon. No one would use it. First of all, it has precedence. It does exist. Odds are someone at some point used it. So don't assume, oh, they probably never used it. They probably did. But also bear in mind that the one that the conqueror uses, not quite accurate. An actual flail would have a longer handle, like almost like a pole-sized handle, so that they could keep the swinging chain and ball away from the wielder. That was the goal. You wanted to keep it away from the wielder as much as you could, so that you weren't in the line of counter strike. It would swing around, but not hit you. But the flail was a good weapon to use to keep an opponent at bay, and it was especially effective against unarmored enemies, because you get that ball swinging at a high enough velocity and it hits you in the face. That can tear up some flesh, that can break bone. It's a pretty devastating weapon. Just know that the myth that we hear about, oh, well, the pole, you know, what about the pole? It could swing back and hit you. The pole was longer, so that they made sure that didn't happen. So that's something to bear in mind. That is something to bear in mind. Moving on. Oh, Valkyrie. Kill this Valkyrie, and then I'll talk to you about another question that was asked me. Gosh dang, Valkyrie. You are starting to annoy me. Gotcha. Oh, the Valkyrie's being that annoying in the game mode. And of course, right as I kill that Valkyrie, it reverses. So annoying. So annoying. Wait, where is he? Anyway, back to what I was saying. Okay, so the next question that I was asked was, okay, so, oh wait, 1 second, sorry.
The Vikings have always warred with themselves much more than with us. It is in their nature to feast on each other. That nature has been stolen from them.
That's actually true. Vikings would probably raid and attack each other just as much as they would other groups of people, because it was easier to get to other tribes and clans very quickly. So sometimes there was infighting among Viking clans. That would happen. Now, the other question that I was asked was, in the last game, we saw Mercy, a peacekeeper, doing some sabotage. And the question was asked, would knights actually sabotage? Is that something that they would do? And the answer is yes and no. That's a good question. It really is. Here's the thing. Knights, this is a common misconception, but knights did not make up the majority of an army. The knights didn't make up the majority of an attacking army. Usually the knights were the shock troopers or the special cavalry. They would usually be the kind that you'd want to bring in as a forward unit. They wouldn't be the ones that you send in to sabotage a castle. You'd usually want to hold them in reserve and say, nope, we're going to have you we're going to have you as an infantryman, a cavalryman. We don't want you to go inside the castle as a preemptive strike. Good, got rid of that one easy. But would the knights frown upon sabotage? Definitely not. They would not frown upon sabotage, because sabotage was a good way to make a battle go by quicker. The quicker the battle goes by, the better off you are, because it means less people lost and less energy and resources expended. So, no, the knights would not have any qualms about sabotage. So how would they go about it? Would they have peacekeepers? Probably not. More likely what would happen is they might bribe someone on the inside, or when everyone is running, when all the civilians are running for the shelter of the castle, they might sneak an agent into the running away civilians to do some sabotage on the inside. Or they might do some sabotage on the masonry or the work underneath the castle walls. But they themselves, you wouldn't actually say, okay, you're a knight, go in there and sabotage the place. That probably did not happen. Just doesn't make sense for it to, since you want to keep the knights in reserve for your actual army. I forgot how annoying this part of the level was, because that ram just keeps on stopping.
We knew at Sverngard that within a day Viking ships would fill the harbor and their army would destroy us. But I intended to be long gone before that could happen.
Sorry guys, I know I'm being quiet. I'm just trying to get through this part because it's annoying. But yes, that was an excellent question about sabotage among knights. Sabotage was done during medieval warfare, but you probably wouldn't get a knight to do it. Usually you want to keep the knights out of the castle until the fighting actually starts, because imagine if that knight failed in the sabotage mission and got captured. That's one less special soldier on your side. Alright, moving on up, moving on up. Ooh, look at that fortress wall. This actually looks a bit more accurate than what we've seen so far, but it's still too large. The wall is still too large. You gotta understand that most Vikings were not expecting to be sieged. Most weren't. And also Vikings, there's no such thing as a Viking city. Nordic cities, and there are people who were Vikings from Nordic cities. And this might be something of a Nordic fortress, but again, the wall's too large, the gates are too large. Usually, if you're living in a Nordic land and you're building a Viking fortress, you usually want to take advantage of the terrain. Like if it's a very hilly terrain, you want to build your fortress among the hills or the mountains so that you can take advantage of it. Good examples that you can see are in stuff like Skyrim. Skyrim has a lot of fortresses and towns and villages that are in good terrain areas where you have good protection. The only real exception that I can think of being Whiterun, which is right in the middle of a giant valley. Although, to be fair, Whiterun's build is actually pretty accurate, I'd argue. It looks really good. Keep it moving. Keep it up, keep it moving. Gosh, you just got this ramp consistently. That's the only problem with this level, guys. It just takes forever to get to the gate. And the flaming arrows, too, they're kind of annoying. I really liked when they added breach mode to the game. When you had breach mode, it actually added something like this, where you had a ram and you were trying to break through a fortress, which was really cool.
We dragged our ram's machinery across Valkenheim. We had to hack down half a forest in a fortnight to build it. But without it, we would have come all that way just to be slain at the front door. You
built this while you were going through Valkenheim? You built this while you were going through... Wow. I'm gonna doubt that. I doubt that. I already doubted the existence of a ram of this caliber, but now you're telling me you built all this while you were making your way here. How did you not run out of resources? How did you not run out of stuff to work with? How did you not run out of food, water, medicine, supplies? Wow. Okay. Nice hit. Oh no. Okay, we're going up to clear the blockage. I guess the spear somehow blocked it. Nice look, but you're covered in fur. Check out the wings on that helmet too, that's just awesome.
Gudmundr, the fort's legendary Jarl.
Okay, so let's talk about this guy's look. Gudmundr is his name. He's a warlord. Look at his armor, though. There's a lot of fur here, and that's not really the way fur would look on a Viking. It's not the right way. The protection you want is on the inside of the fur pelt. And also, people always say, what about Viking helmets with horns? Well, it's true. Viking helmets usually didn't have horns. They also probably didn't have wings like this either, but you know what? For honor logic, we're gonna take some liberties. Also, this little combo he's doing here, Warlords don't have access to that in the game. Ah! That's such a fail. Wow, what did I drink last night?
On your feet.
Yes, ma'am. Ow, thank goodness I'm wearing a helmet. Okay, so let's take a look at the inside of this fortress.
We were in.
So want to explain why my block didn't work there? There. Why do you have these spikes just lying around? It's perfect for killing, but what are they for?
First time sacking a fortress. Why did they bother me?
All right, so looking around. Ooh, what's this?
We could have broken open that gate with a far smaller ramp. But that would have taken time. Time that the Vikings would have used to reinforce.
What? But you just said it took you a fortnight to build that giant ram. You're saying they didn't have that time to reinforce? You could have used a smaller ram and just hit it more times to get in, and it wouldn't have taken as long to put... Wow, Apollyon, of all the things you've said so far, that one made the least amount of sense.
The fortress of Sverngard was home to many of the wealthiest Viking clans. The merchant trades always produced such people. Now they would have to fight for their food.
Well, they've just got to learn somehow, don't they? Let's kill these archers. This is not really what a Viking city would look like, but for a fantasy world, it looks alright. A lot more bridges and parapets and stuff like that than I'd expect. These fences going on over here. You know, even though she says that would have given them time to reinforce, they look like they've already reinforced it pretty well. For a storehouse, this place looks like a pretty well fortified area. Oh, come on. There we go. These Valkyries are annoying. Anything else I'm missing? Anything else? Anything else? Nope. Get that one down. Another question that I was asked, which I'll quickly answer, was, are the knight armors that we see here historically accurate? I did videos on each of the warriors in For Honor, and I talked about the historical accuracy of their armor, but I'll just say that the majority of them are decent enough. They're not bad, they're just decent. Alright. Oh my god, there really were wolves in here. Alright, time to deal with these wolves.
Prepare to die.
Man, you bringing in wolves. Aren't you going to fight me honorably? So what I do when I'm fighting these wolves is I wait for my little red indicator, and then I try to guard break them. Come on. Yep, that's one down. Next. Oh, bad timing. Got that one. If you try to hit them without guard breaking them, they'll just run away from you. Come on. Dang it. I'm not getting my timing right. Would Vikings actually own wolves? Probably not. Wolves were wild animals. You don't want to keep a wild animal. Alright. Kill that wolf. Now it's just you and me, dude. Shoot, that guard break, though. And now he just called up more wolves. Why are you calling up more wolves on me, Gudmundr? And where'd you get these wolves anyway, dude? I want to know. Where'd you get these? Alright, that's a wolf down. Man, you be distracting me, Gudmundr. Okay, that was a good block. Kill the wolf. There we go. Man, these wolves.
You're strong, Gudmundr.
Alright, sorry that I haven't been talking much, guys. It's just, you gotta focus on some of these fights. Sir, you're out of wolves. We'll deal with it. We'll be your wolves. Grr. You are not nearly as annoying as the wolves. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Wow, we already started burning all this? How'd we get this far in? I thought that Gudmundr was blocking all this off, but look at this. We've already done a real number on this place. Okay, so here's a good question that somebody asked me. This wasn't in the last video, but it was one that somebody asked me. In sieges, how often do you burn down stuff like this? How often is burning like this possible? It really depends on what the army wants to do with the fortress at the end of it all. Do they want to occupy the fortress, or do they want to just take it, or do they just want to kill it and move on? If you just want to get rid of everyone on the inside, then yeah, just burn the place down and decide what you want to do with the civilians. Because not always did you want to kill the civilians. Sometimes if you left them alive, it made you look better in the eyes of the people. But if you want to take advantage of the fortress and its stuff, then you don't want to burn it down like this. You want to preserve it. You want to hold it all together. So it really depended on what you wanted to do with it.
We would leave survivors to tell the tale of what had been lost at Sverngard. And when they heard, they would come, looking for what was left.
Okay, so she's saying they would leave survivors for that reason. Well, in many medieval campaigns, it was common practice to leave some civilians alive, because what's the point in killing them? In some medieval battles, you did leave the civilians alive. So it's not like that was unheard of. All right, last part. Oh, you feel real bad for him. It's really sad. This whole world's been torn apart. But, wait. Hold on. I'll get to this in a minute. Nice sword, man. Can I keep it? Nah, I got my own. Here you go. Okay, so here's my big problem. Do you remember when Apollyon said that the Vikings invade yearly and they pillage and burn and steal and destroy? Someone want to explain to me how this is different? I mean, let's be real honest here. How is this different? We're supposed to feel all bad for them. Oh, this is so sad. How could we do this to them? They did this to us. This is payback. Now, of course, we're supposed to feel bad because this was just a storehouse. This wasn't a military place, but still, it seems a little inconsistent.
You fought well.
To hell with you.
Note the lack of two L's. He's referring to Helheim. My God, she's like Batman. No, she's Batman.
Why are we here?
That's a real philosophical question. Why are any of us here?
I think you know.
Okay.
Famine. This place houses their seed grain. There will be no new harvest. By winter, they will be killing each other over what little food is left.
It's pretty dark.
I took an oath to fight for peace.
Yeet!
So did you. All of you.
It's pretty dark, guys. Alright, I'll address this at the end. Let's finish this up.
Hey. This food. Why are we not burning it all?
What do you imagine the clans would do if we burned it all?
They'd starve. Die.
Yes, they would.
They would unite,
And then die.
but leave them scraps. Just enough for 2, maybe 3 clans. They will fight each other over what remains. The wolves among them will rise. We're not here to kill them. We are here to teach them who they are. To set them free.
Why?
Time to go home.
That's a pretty good throw, all things considered. Okay, so let's talk about a few things first and foremost. I'm going to do a full-on video on Apollyon, like I said I would, but I will address this. Apollyon's tactic here is very, very sick, okay? It's the whole idea of we're going to leave only a little bit so that the Vikings will start fighting and killing each other so that only the strong will remain. And here's a question that I'm sure someone's going to ask. Was this an actual practice? Would you actually want to hit store grains like this? Or was this seen as an unpopular decision by knight factions? In real history, no, this would totally happen. Because if what you want to do is keep in mind, you didn't always fight to the death. You want to force the enemy to surrender. And if you take out their food supply, if you knock out the food that they have left, they'll have to surrender once they all start starving and dying. Remember, I said that one of the common siege tactics was to just sit outside the castle and wait for them to run out of food, and they'd starve to death. Eventually, rather than starve to death, they'll just come out and say, okay, we give up. Saves you time, saves you lives, forces them to capitulate. So this was a common practice. But I suppose in this world, where they're more honor-bound and neither side is really going to fight and neither side is going to want to surrender, I guess this would be seen as an unhonorable tactic. But the idea of destroying food supplies, that is very much a practice that you could do. And it was something that was done. Now, leaving only a little bit behind, it goes into Apollyon's ideology, but it probably wouldn't be something that was practiced all that often. So the Warden seems to have quit, and the other knights are starting to think that Apollyon is not the great leader that they thought. And I think part of that goes into, they thought that Apollyon was going to help them go in and fully wipe out the Vikings, or at least deal them a critical blow, and now they're seeing that wasn't her goal at all. And here's the reason why I think this was a silly idea, just from my perspective. You have now made it so that the Vikings are even harder to deal with. Apollyon had just made the knights super strong. She'd taken all the weak knights out, had now made a super strong fighting force. Imagine if she'd taken them in and just wiped out the Vikings, because she had said that the Vikings had become weaker now. Just wipe them out now. Now is your time. You could just take them out and now take their land for yourself, but that's not what you wanted to do. She just now made another very vicious fighting force to contend with. So, regardless, again, I'll make a full video on Apollyon, but that does it, guys. That's all the knights. So now we'll be moving into chapter 2, and starting next time with the very first part of chapter 2, raiding the raiders. And we're going to be playing as the Viking faction that time. Going to be a lot of fun. If you guys have any other questions that you'd like to ask me based on this video or based on what's coming up, please leave them in the comments section. If you have any other suggestions or things that you'd like to see happen later with the series, please let me know. And so that's it, guys, and I will see you in the next For Honor Analysis video. Take care. Can't wait to do it.